headlights cut through the darkness like knives through velvet. East Texas, deep into Piney woods, where the towering loblolly pines create walls on either side of forgotten farm roads. It's past midnight when most travelers realize they've made a terrible mistake. The GPS stopped working miles ago. The radio dissolved into static. And then the tapping begins, soft at first, deliberate, knuckles against glass. You turn, and there they are, standing at your window, pale faces pressed close to the glass. But it's the eyes that stop your heart. Completely black. No whites. No irises. Just endless, consuming darkness staring back at you. And they want something. They always want something. Welcome to the Piney woods of East Texas, where an ancient presence has learned to wear familiar shapes. Where travelers on isolated roads encounter figures that should not exist. Where the line between our world and something older has grown dangerously thin. This is the story of the black-eyed watchers. And if you've driven these roads at night, they may have already seen you. The Piney woods stretch across 23 million acres of East Texas, a vast cathedral of ancient trees that predates European settlement by thousands of years. The Caddo people who first inhabited these forests spoke of spirits that dwelled in the deepest shadows, entities that could mimic human form but were fundamentally other. They warned against traveling alone after dark, against stopping on certain paths when a moon was hidden, against ever opening your door to strangers in the wilderness. The Spanish explorers who pushed through these forests in the 1540s documented strange encounters in their journals. Expedition member Francisco Vasquez described figures that appeared along the trail at dusk, always keeping pace with the horses but never quite emerging from the tree line. He wrote of eyes that reflected no light, of voices that called out in perfect Spanish but seemed to come from everywhere at once. 3 men from that expedition vanished. They were found days later, alive but changed. They spoke of being invited somewhere, of following voices deeper into the forest. None of them could remember what they'd seen, but all 3 refused to sleep without candles burning until their deaths, by the 1800s, when timber companies began carving roads through the wilderness. The reports took on a darker consistency. Loggers working night shifts spoke of children who would emerge from the forest asking for help, asking to be taken to town, asking to come inside the work cabins. Always children, always alone, always with something wrong about their appearance that the loggers couldn't quite articulate in the moment. It was only later, lying awake in their bunks, that they would remember. The eyes, solid black from edge to edge at a logging camp near what is now Angelina National Forest, kept a journal of incidents. The entries are matter of fact, written in the clipped language of men trying to document something they don't understand. May 12, 1887, boy approximately 10 years old, appeared at the mess hall door after sunset. Requested entry. Foreman Turner noted strange appearance and refused. Boy remained at door for 2 hours, knocking periodically. June 3rd, 1887, same boy returned. This time brought a girl, similar age. Both requested entry with increasing urgency. Night watchman Perry reported feeling compelled to open the door. Door remained locked. Perry quit employment the following day. The final entry, dated August 19th, 1887, simply reads, "Camp relocating. This place is wrong. The trees watch. The children are not children." When a new crew attempted to set up at the same location 3 years later, they found a warning carved into the main door. They knock. Never answer. Never invite them in. Sarah Mitchell's hands were cramping on the steering wheel. She'd been driving for 6 hours straight, trying to make it to her sister's place in Nacogdoches before midnight. The shortcut through the national forest had seemed like a good idea when her GPS suggested it. That was before the signal died, before the road narrowed to a single lane, before her engine coughed twice and died completely. She coasted to a stop, surrounded by towering pines that swallowed the weak glow of her emergency flashers. Nothing but forest in every direction. No houses, no other cars, no cell signal. She was alone, or so she thought. The tapping started at 11:47 p.m. Soft knuckles against the driver's side window. Sarah's heart lurched. She turned, expecting an adult offering help. Instead, a young face stared back at her through the glass. A boy, no older than 12, pale skin almost luminous in the darkness. He was smiling. That should have been reassuring. It wasn't. "Can you help me?" His voice was muffled but clear. Polite. Almost rehearsed. "I'm lost. I need to get home." Sarah's finger hovered over the door lock button, the automatic instinct to help warring with something deeper. Something primal screaming at her to drive away, dead engine or not. The boy tilted his head, waiting. Patient. Too patient for a lost child in the middle of nowhere. "Where are your parents?" Sarah asked through the glass, not opening the window, even a crack. "They're waiting. Can you please let me in? It's cold out here." It was 78 degrees. A warm September night. The boy pressed closer to the glass, and that's when Sarah saw them. His eyes, in the red glow of her taillights. They should have reflected the light. Instead, they absorbed it. Completely black. Solid. Infinite. Her hand slammed the lock button just as his fingers wrapped around the door handle. The boy didn't react. Didn't show frustration or fear. He simply stood there, maintaining that same rehearsed smile, those impossible eyes never blinking. "You need to let me in," he said, and his voice had changed. Flatter now, less human. "It's important that you let me in." Behind him, Sarah saw movement in the trees. More pale faces emerging from the darkness. A girl in a nightgown, bare feet on the gravel. A teenager in outdated clothes. Two more younger ones holding hands. All of them walking toward her car with the same measured pace. All of them with those eyes. Those terrible, empty eyes, they surrounded the vehicle. 7 of them in total, standing in a loose circle, not moving, not speaking, just watching, waiting. The boy at her window finally spoke again. "We can wait." And they did. They waited with the patience of stones, of mountains, of things that have existed far longer than they should. Sarah sat rigid in her driver's seat, terror thrumming through her veins as the forest breathed around her and the figures with black eyes kept their vigil. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., they turned. All of them, in perfect unison, and they walked back into the forest, their pale forms swallowed by the darkness between the trees. The boy was last to leave. He pressed one hand flat against her window, fingers splayed. "We'll see you again," he whispered. Then he was gone. Sarah's engine started on the first turn of the key. The phenomenon escalated through the 1990s and into the new millennium. As more people moved to rural areas surrounding the Piney woods, the encounters didn't decrease. They multiplied. James Crowder was a truck driver who regularly hauled timber through the region. He'd driven these roads for 15 years without incident until October 14th, 2003. He was heading south on Highway 96 when his CB radio erupted with static. Through the interference, he heard what sounded like children singing. Not any song he recognized, just wordless notes that made his skin crawl. Then he saw them, standing on a shoulder ahead. 3 figures illuminated by his high beams, facing the road, arms at their sides, perfectly still. As James approached, doing 65 miles per hour with no intention of slowing down, they turned their heads in unison to watch him pass. The truck's headlights swept across their faces for just a moment. Just long enough for James to see their eyes. Just long enough for his blood to freeze. He didn't brake. He pressed the accelerator to the floor and didn't stop until he reached Lufkin, 30 miles away. There, hands still shaking, he told the waitress what he'd seen. She didn't laugh, didn't question him. She simply nodded and poured him coffee. "The Watchers," she said quietly. "That's what folks around here call them. Been showing up since before my grandmother's time. You're lucky. You didn't stop. What happens if you stop?" James asked. The waitress was silent for a long moment, staring out at the darkness beyond the lights. Most people don't talk about it. The ones who do, they're never quite the same after. Rebecca Torres thought she was prepared. She'd heard the stories growing up in Jasper. She'd always been skeptical. Urban legends with no substance. Then she encountered them herself. It was a Tuesday evening in March 2008. Rebecca was driving home from her shift at the hospital in Lufkin, taking the back roads she'd traveled 1,000 times. She was approaching Dead Man Stretch when her headlights caught movement ahead. A figure standing in the middle of the road. Rebecca slammed on the brakes. A girl stood in her high beams, maybe 14 years old, wearing a white dress that looked like it belonged in a different era. Her dark hair hung past her shoulders. She wasn't moving, wasn't reacting to the car at all, just standing there, head tilted slightly as if listening to something Rebecca couldn't hear. "Are you okay?" Rebecca called through her cracked window. "Do you need help?" The girl's head turned toward her with mechanical precision. Too smooth, too controlled. "My mother's waiting for me. I need to get home. Can you give me a ride?" Every instinct Rebecca had screamed no. "Where's your mother?" "She's waiting. In the woods. Can you take me to her?" Another step. The girl was close enough now that Rebecca could see her face clearly. Young, pretty, completely expressionless. In her eyes, solid black orbs that caught the headlights and swallowed them whole. Rebecca yanked the door shut and locked it. The girl stopped advancing. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the girl smiled. It was horrible. A lifting of lips that held no warmth, no humanity. Just a mechanical mimicry of happiness. "You should let me in. It would be better if you let me in." Movement in the mirrors. More figures emerging from the tree line. A boy in pajamas. A teenager in a varsity jacket from a school that had closed in 1972. 5 in total, all walking toward her car with that same unsettling gait. They surrounded the vehicle, standing in a loose circle. Watching, waiting. The girl in white placed both hands on Rebecca's hood and leaned forward. "We've been here longer than your roads, longer than your towns. We've always been in the deep places. But we've learned. We've adapted. We can wear your shapes now. And we're so very hungry to be invited in." Rebecca tried the engine. It started. Thank God it started. But the figures didn't move. They blocked the road ahead and behind. "Drive," the girl said, that terrible smile never wavering. "We'll move. This time. But you've seen us now. Really seen us. You're marked. We'll find you again. In your dreams first. Then at your windows. Then at your doors. And one night, you'll be tired, distracted, and you'll forget to be afraid. You'll open the door, and we'll be standing there." The figures stepped aside. Rebecca floored the accelerator. In her rearview mirror, she watched them turn in unison to watch her leave, 5 pale faces with black eyes tracking her retreat. Rebecca drove straight to her parents' house and didn't sleep without lights on for 2 years afterward. She started seeing them everywhere. Not really there, just in the corner of her vision, just in the shadows, just standing at the edge of the woods behind her apartment, visible from her bedroom window at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. Just watching. Always watching to understand what the watchers might be. We must delve into the darker chapters of the Piney Woods history. In 1835, a settlement called Redemption was established deep in what is now the Sabine National Forest. The community was founded by a religious group led by a preacher named Ezekiel Thorne. Thorne preached that the wilderness was a thin place where humanity could commune with powers beyond mortal understanding. The settlement lasted only 3 years. In 1838, a surveying party stumbled upon Redemption and found it abandoned. The buildings were intact. Food was still on tables. But every human inhabitant, 73 people, had vanished. They found journals. Ezekiel Thorne's writings became increasingly erratic in the final months, describing watchers of the tree line and eyes that hold eternity. The final entry read, "They have come. As I promised, the veil is open. We go to meet them in the deep places. We go willingly. Praise to the watchers." No bodies were ever recovered, but locals began reporting strange sightings in that area. Figures that moved through the forest at night. Pale shapes that watched from the shadows. And over time, the reports solidified. The figures appeared human, appeared young, but their eyes held something ancient and hungry. The phenomenon hasn't faded with time. If anything, it's intensified. In 2015, paranormal investigators from Austin decided to spend 3 nights camping in the heart of the Piney Woods. They brought sophisticated equipment and live-streamed their investigation. The first night was uneventful. The second night, they captured figures on thermal imaging approaching their campsite. Human-shaped, But their heat signatures were all wrong. Too cold. The third night, the stream cut out at 2:47 a.m. When it came back online 3 hours later, the camp was empty. The equipment was still running. But the investigators were gone. They were found 6 hours later, 3 miles from camp, sitting in a circle in a clearing. All four were conscious but unresponsive, catatonic, staring at nothing, occasionally whispering. They're old. So old. They remember when the forest covered everything. They're hungry. So hungry. And we almost let them in. The investigators recovered physically, but were never the same. Two quit paranormal investigation entirely. The others refused to discuss what happened or to ever return to the Piney Woods. The legacy of the Watchers continues. They've become part of the cultural fabric of East Texas. Parents still warn their children. Truck drivers still avoid certain routes after dark. And the encounters continue, an unbroken chain of terror stretching from the first explorers to yesterday's lost tourists. But something new is happening. The Watchers are expanding their territory. Reports have begun coming in from areas outside the traditional Piney Woods region. Sightings in Houston suburbs. Encounters on the outskirts of Dallas. As if the entities are adapting again, following human expansion, refusing to be confined to the deep wilderness that a security guard at Houston Office Park reported an incident in 2023. He was making rounds at 3 a.m. when he noticed children in the parking lot. As he approached, his flashlight caught their faces. 5 children standing in a perfect line, motionless, staring with eyes that reflected his light like an animal's, but somehow worse. Empty, void-like. We're lost, one said. A girl, maybe 9, can you help us find our way home? Where do you live? In the deep places. But they're not so far away anymore. You brought them closer. Your buildings, your roads. You've paved over the forests, but you haven't killed what lived there. We're still here, and now we're closer than ever. The guard backed away. His radio produced only static. His phone showed no signal despite being in the middle of a major city. The children began walking toward him. He ran. The office park has gone through 7 security guards in 18 months. None will work the night shift alone. Local governments officially deny any pattern. Police reports are filed and quietly archived. But the people who live in affected areas know. They talk in quiet voices. They share warnings that are quickly deleted. They teach their children the rules that don't drive alone at night on forest roads. If your car breaks down, stay inside no matter what you see. Never stop for anyone on an empty road, no matter how young or helpless they appear. If someone knocks and you see their eyes drive, don't speak to them. Don't acknowledge them. And whatever you do, never invite them inside. The rules are passed down like folk wisdom because official channels won't acknowledge the danger. How do you tell citizens that something impossible is real? How do you warn people about entities that shouldn't exist? You can't. So the knowledge stays informal, passed from person to person, believed by those who've experienced it, dismissed by those who haven't. Until the night, they find themselves on a dark road with something pale and terrible tapping on their window. The sun sets over the Piney Woods every evening, as it has for millennia. The shadows lengthen. The temperature drops. And along the forgotten farm roads, the isolated highways, the trails that wind deep into the forest, something stirs. Something wakes. Something begins its nightly hunt that if you find yourself driving through East Texas after dark, keep your doors locked. Keep your windows up. Don't stop for anyone, no matter how innocent they appear. Don't answer the knocking. Don't look too long into eyes that hold no light, because the Watchers are real. They're patient. They're hungry. And they're waiting for you to make a mistake. Waiting for the moment of weakness. Waiting for the invitation they know will eventually come. They have all the time in the world. DOU. Thank you for watching STF Orvault. If this story sent chills down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more terrifying tales from America's darkest corners. Have you ever encountered something unexplainable on a lonely road? Share your story in the comments below. But be careful what you admit to seeing, because once you start looking for the Watchers, they start looking back. And they never, ever forget a face. Until next time, stay safe out there. The forest is listening, and it's waiting to see if you believe.